Warning: the five may contain discussions on topics such as death, suicide, rape, addiction, and abuse. Although these topics are approached in a therapeutic manner, they still may have triggering effects on some individuals. Viewer discretion is advised.
Human beings are crafted through experience. Each person, from the closest of friend to the most random of stranger, has a unique story crafted by the ultimate experience that we call life. Welcome to the Five. The same five questions, a completely different experience every time.
I met today's guest at DragonCon at the Marvel photo shoot, which is one of the largest photo shoots that they have at DragonCon. And if you've never been to DragonCon, it's thousands and thousands of people getting together just to nerd out. There's a lot of costumes and everything like that. And that photo shoot takes a very, very long time. So you get to know the people that's around you. And there was a person dressed as a gender-bent Jean Grey. Turned out he was really cool, really funny. I started calling him Jean Grey. And then it just so happened that every year after that DragonCon, I always ran into Jean Grey at DragonCon, which if you have been, you would know that is nearly impossible. It is like so hard to run into somebody, even if you know where they're at, it's hard to find them. So every time we would just say hi and everything like that. And then finally we got found each other online after probably 5 years and became friends. And I think it's just one of those people that gets put in your path that's meant to be there because we just kept finding each other. So how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Thanks. I think this is great that you even asked me to do this. So this will be a lot of fun today. I had to look back. I think it's been about 8 years since we first met at that photo shoot. And you had Nightcrawler on. You had all the face paint and that bodysuit. And I didn't even recognize you when I saw you later out of costume. So glad you recognized me. But that was a blast. So DragonCon is, like I say, 80,000 of your closest friends, but it's not nothing that we keep running into each other. So that's something. But so thanks for letting me participate here. I'm Steven. I now live in San Francisco. You and I met when I was living in Atlanta. But I'm actually a Canadian living in America now for over 20 years. And I'm cheerful, upbeat sort of guy. So I tend to attract other cheerful, upbeat sort of guys like you. But I would say if I had to talk about myself, the theme is I just like learning new things, meeting new people, having new experiences. And I'm a scientist by training. So I just kind of have that goofy, endearing, nerdy sort of thing. And then I also kind of balance it out with this artsy side, which gets me into the DragonCon and the costumes and everything. And that's what connected us. So I often describe myself, if you're familiar with the Big Bang Theory, I tell people if Sheldon Cooper and Bridget Jones had a love child, it would be me. So, little smart, but kind of awkward and funny at the same time. So, but yeah, that's about it. I don't identify with my career that much. I mean, I work in a biotech company here. I do patent law for them. So that's, it's exciting. It's a, really Star Trek kind of science fiction stuff. So it definitely helps me out. But I typically stay out of the limelight, but this is something fun and it's easier with a friend. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
Well, I'm really excited you're here. And you know the drill. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You can take as much time as you want. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
I had to think about that one. And I finally landed actually on my move from Canada to America. That was over 20 years ago now. I finished my degree in Canada and I went to Atlanta to do postdoctoral research and didn't even know what I was getting into. I was moving to America. I was naive. I spent, a bunch of years in a lab. So, didn't have a lot of street smarts, pretty ignorant of the world. And then I moved to America, not just America, but the Deep South. So I coined the term cultural whiplash. And it was a lot, just, realizing that visiting the States as a visitor was one thing, but setting up a life there was a totally different kettle of fish. And every day it was something new. And so I swear my stress levels were just off the chart for God, the first year or two. But there was always that threat of deportation. My immigration lawyer was, very good at reminding me I was now a guest in someone's home and I had to comport myself appropriately. So, I just kind of did the, smile and be nice and try to drink in as much information as I wanted. But it was an adventure. As scary as it was, I was loving it. It was brand new. It was exciting. It was just a fascinating time to be in Atlanta. It was a few years after the Olympics there, so it was fantastic just to experience the city at that stage. And then over the time I lived there, I got to see it grow. But that first year was a lot. I didn't speak the language, so I was told a lot. Oh, bless your heart, and I was also I received "Y'all not from around here, are ya?" That was a big one the first year, and I didn't know the expressions, I didn't know the food, I didn't know the history, I didn't know the law, and so yeah, it was just really overwhelming. Over and over and over. And the political thing was new for me. I had to like learn a brand new political system. And Canada's based on the British system, and America, threw that away 250 years ago and did something new. So, I tell you, it was like drinking from the fire hose. I landed, and I even went to try and get my possession of my new apartment that I had arranged, and I couldn't because I didn't have my social security number yet. So I had to stay with a friend for a week until that arrived. And it was just like one thing after the other. The health insurance, right? I mean, I'd never seen a health bill for, at that time, 29 years. And then all of a sudden I'm, getting billed for, all of this. So it was definitely, very different sort of thing. I had no credit history. So as much as I did really well all through, college and grad school to, keep a flawless credit history, they weren't going to look over the border to see how good it was. I had to start all over from scratch. So, there was that. Didn't know what a 401k was. It was just like one thing after the other. And I would say probably the first 3 years, I would just wake up in the middle of the night and say, "Oh my God, I moved to Georgia," and I would say it took a while for that to calm down, just because I still did not believe that I actually did it. But I surrounded myself with really good people, and I think they thought it was novel having someone so totally foreign around. So just they took me under their wing. I could ask stupid questions. There was the judgment, there was the "oh bless your heart," but then they were very good at explaining everything that I needed to kind of get that comfort and survive. But you make the assumption that Canada and the States are similar just because we're neighbors and we speak the same language, we watch the same TV. But I think you got to really dive in before you realize, the differences, and I joke about this one. I mean, when you're from a country where there's snow on the ground 8 to 9 months of the year, you go to your friend's house and you're going to take your shoes off at the door. You're not going to track in snow and mud and everything into their home. And of course, I did that in Atlanta, the first house party I was invited to. And, it was basically, I took my pants off and sat on the couch and, they were like, "Oh my God, what's he doing? His shoes are off." And I thought I was being nice and polite, but I had a friend pull me aside really quickly and say, "You go put your shoes on right now." And, and he explained, you just presumed a level of familiarity with this host that you've never met. And you're nodding because like you're Southern. So you're like, "Oh my gosh, you took your shoes off in a stranger's house?" I thought I was being nice. Anyway, but that was one example. And then once, everyone realized, oh, he's Canadian. Oh, then it would make sense. But, it was just one thing after the other. And it was scary because, every day you leave your apartment, you're just it's daunting. I think for the first 6 months, you're like, "Oh, what's going to be the lesson today?" And you're looking up at heaven and you're like, "You have a sense of humor," shakes fist at sky. But honestly, like I said, it was the adventure, but adventures are scary, and at the end of the day, you kind of grow from it. So, but I found a lot of great friends, and And at the end of the day, it just kind of became comfortable. And I wound up staying in Atlanta for, God, almost 20 years. So before I moved here to San Francisco.
As being in the South, I normally try to avoid Atlanta as much as I can. uh, it's to me, it's a big city that's the traffic there is absolutely crazy. Trying to park, I'm one of those people that once I'm parked, I'm okay in an area, but there's just no such thing as parking in Atlanta for the most part.
No, that's scary in itself.
Every year when I go to Dragon Con, I have a parking garage that I park at. I've parked at that parking garage for every year I've been to Dragon Con, which is like, gosh, going on like 12 or 13 years now. And it's like I beeline for that. And soon as I'm in, I'm like, I'm good. I can relax now. And then I've got to take like, 17 loads of costumes to the hotel across town, or it's probably only like a couple of blocks away, but Atlanta is kind of like one of those places that I'm still nervous in, so I could imagine like moving to Atlanta and being like, okay, this is home now. I need to learn how to navigate through this. And I don't know if you came from a big city back in Canada, but Atlanta's a pretty big city. It's a bustling place, and it's also one of those places where it's like one street you will be like Lamborghinis, and then the next street is a crack house, and so you just accidentally take one wrong street, and you never know what.
Yeah, you learn really quick. That's for sure.
Next on the list would be, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
Ooh, another traveling adventure. So this one, I was younger when this happened, but it was still pretty weird. I was about 25, so right after college, and a friend of mine was teaching in Japan for a couple of years, English. And so I decided, let's have an adventure. And in retrospect, what was I thinking going to Japan by myself? Again, at 25, not being that, worldly and being super naive. But yeah, I wound up flying into Osaka, and I took 3 trains to get to this, tiny little hamlet of 200,000 people. And, and it was great. My friend she spoke Japanese at that point. She knew the culture. She was like, just again, my own personal tour guide. But I was this 25-year-old, reddish brown hair, freckled, blue-eyed, pasty white boy. And I was the one in the whole city. And everyone was super nice. Nobody spoke English, so I had to, learn some phrases really quick. But I had glasses at the time. It was before I had LASIK. So I was just, walking around doing my thing. And I still remember one of the funniest things was just everybody watching me, whether I was on the street or in the school with the kids, everybody was like stopping and staring. And like I mentioned, I don't really like being in the limelight. So it was weird for me. Just, I really just kind of wanted to blend in, but there was that pseudo celebrity status. And I finally found out which celebrity it was, because the kids kept saying, Wale Osagase, Wale Osagase. And I finally asked my friend, what are they saying? And she's like, oh my God, they're saying, look, it's Waldo. I found Waldo. I looked exactly like Waldo from the Where's Waldo books, and they were just head over heels over it. But it was strange just with that. I had to go get my hair cut while I was there. It was humid. My hair got big. She gave me all the lines printed out with phonetically on paper to say to the stylist in the salon. They all wanted to touch my hair. So I sat down, and there were 4 of them. And one wanted to wash my hair. One wanted to cut it. One just wanted to feel it, And, they were all just nattering on about this reddish brown hair. And I'm like, okay. So it was, again, just a lot of attention that I was not ready for at the time. And then I just, even at the school, we were just sitting there in the cafeteria, meeting, talking with the kids. They were just really enjoying this, stranger. And I was over here talking to one child, and then I felt like a buzz, like a bug on my arm. And I turned over and I looked at my form, and it was 2 other children playing with my arm hair, because there's just no arm hair to be found. So it was definitely probably one of the strangest experiences I had. But at the end of the day, it was, again, an adventure, and to experience that. And, I was there for 2 weeks. I learned a bunch of Japanese. Some of it I still have. I saw, so much of the country. It's beautiful. Everyone was super nice. But it was the attention that came along with it that I've never really experienced as a tourist somewhere else. So yeah, it was strange.
Japan's on my list. It's probably one of the next places I plan on going. So that kind of makes me feel good about it.
I honestly, I think you'd love it. Like you would absolutely love it.
I'm wanting to go to like, some of the traditional places. Of course, I want to see Tokyo and everything like that. But again, like I said earlier, I'm not like a big city guy for the most part. So I'm kind of looking at the traditional side. And plus, I'm one of those anime kids that, picture Japan as like cherry blossoms falling out of the trees and festivals and everything. So
And it is. It totally is.
you sold me right there.
You'll love it.
Well, I guess we can move on to the next thing, which is what's the most memorable moment of your life so far?
Yeah, and it's another adventure. It's I've been very lucky that for whatever reason, I don't know, I seek out the adventures. They just happen to me. The best advice I ever got when I was younger was when the universe throws you something, just say yes. Even if it's just mentally walking it through your head, just say yes. And how would that look? And sometimes you get to it when you're like, oh yeah, I don't need to be doing that. But, for the most part, just by saying yes and exploring the situation, you just have these amazing life experiences. And so the most memorable, this was almost my weirdest story actually, but I decided to save it for memorable. I was about 39 and I got laid off from my job. And, it was Atlanta. And again, I'm very specialized career-wise. So I was thinking, oh, how quickly am I going to find something? And, I had my house and, car and all this stuff. And it was not a great place that I was let go of. So I kind of needed to just kind of decompress and unwind and stuff like that for a while. But as luck had it, and I think, this is just God and that sense of humor that, just kind of nudges me through my life. I had a friend from St. Louis who just called me up one day and said, hey, my husband and I and our kids need to move to Atlanta for 1 year for, he's doing a fellowship. We're looking for a place to live. Do you have, any recommendations or areas or whatever? And the wheels in my head went, and I just said, do you want to rent my house for a year? And so they moved in. I packed 2 suitcases in my car and I took off. And basically I spent 12 months just being a nomad. And I stayed a month pretty much with a different friend for a full calendar year. And so I said, I'm going to write a book someday, and it's going to be called The Urban Nomad: Confessions of a Well-Mannered House Guest. And I did everything. I lived with, roommates, gay and straight and couples and families with young kids. Uncle Stephen had to get the kids up into school one day because mom and dad had work meetings. And, this was, a lot of different experiences all coming at me over the course of this 1 year. Stayed with one friend in the guest room for a month, and, his crazy ex-boyfriend was ringing the doorbell at 2 a.m. making a bunch of noise. And, I'm like, I don't do this kind of thing in my life. So it was a lot just to have that. But, it was just a very transformational year. I think what it boils down to is when we get to that age, when we're 40. I turned 40. I tell people I was single, unemployed, and homeless. But it really just kind of gets you to reevaluate your life. And I learned a lot more about just how much we need, what my needs are and what motivates me. And I just kind of had a better sense of who I was. And more importantly, just the role and the importance that my career plays in my life. I think a lot of us at that point in our life, we really start to identify with your career. Oh, what do you do? I'm an accountant. I'm a teacher. I'm a lawyer. That really taught me to just start asking that question to people. Hey, like, what finances your dreams? I don't want to know what you are career-wise. That's just, to me, what's bringing money into your life so you can actually do the fun stuff. But it was a fantastic year. The first couple of months were always a little, I was panicky trying to like find places to live. I don't want to overstay my welcome. Got to find a new place to live. But after a couple of months, I had people just offering up their places. They thought my life was just such an adventure. They wanted to take me out for dinner and, oh, where are you staying this month? Where are you staying next month? We have a mother-in-law suite. Oh, we have a guest room. We're going out of town. You can house sit for and watch our dog for us. And and it was just this constant flow of intense new experiences while you're healing from a really stressful job that you had left. So I found a lot of, again, great people, reconnected with social circles, found new friends, including frankly the friends that started taking me to DragonCon, and that's where I met you. So this period of my life, that 1 year, was super transformative, and just on so many levels. I remember I had the opportunity to go skydiving that year. Again, a couple of my friends are like, "Hey, Stephen, let's go skydiving," and I thought, "Okay, say yes." And how would that look? And I thought, well, hey, if anything happens to me, at least I'm not going to let anyone down at work. So, um, and so we went up there, and sure enough, they strapped a former Marine to my back and threw me out of a plane. And I did think to myself in Gaelic, if I do die, getting a Marine strapped to your back and you're plummeting to the ground is not a bad way to go. So, um, but everything worked out fine. But I got to tell you, like Brad, falling from that plane and you're just, you know, floating up there in the air. And we went extra high. So, we were, I think, 12,000 feet up in the air or something. The nerd in me is thinking I can use approved portable electronic devices. But yeah, no, it was fantastic. Just, sailing to the ground and you feel like you're flying. And there was something that was just really liberating. Again, just, I just had so much of that experience in that 12-year period. And then, yeah, I just started laughing about how, God in that sense of humor, like every month, by month 9, month 10, people are asking me where I was staying. Like, I don't know, but I know something's going to fall in my lap. You just really cultivated that faith that, hey, you're going to be taken care of.
That's amazing. You kind of got to get like a taste of different lives, For a lot of people, that's a nightmare because everybody gets so set in their ways. But I'm not that type of person. I always say I like to F my life up every so often and just start over. And I think it's like one of those things that, like I've swapped careers. I was a scientist as well, and I went into like cybersecurity and stuff. And I think it makes you grow and it makes you appreciate like your life more. If like you're like, I'm not this thing. I'm like you. I never like to introduce myself as what I do or anything like that. I always say I'm just a nerdy guy or I'm this, and everybody instantly usually goes, well, what do you do for work? Because most people don't play that game. But it is one of those things where it's like, to me, that sounds like just an amazing experience. Getting to just kind of step in, and it's like quantum. Remember that old show, Quantum Leap? I think it's back out now, where you get, he has to be in somebody's life for just a little bit. You got like 12 months of Quantum Leap right there.
It was amazing. Just like every month, it was something new. And experiencing other people's lives, exactly like Scott Bakula and Quantum Leap, it really reframes your self-identity, right? You get such a better idea of who you are as a person, and the way you can articulate what you're experiencing, what you're feeling. And it was fantastic. But it really showed me that I had a tremendous amount of support in my life. And I remember one friend, I moved in with her and her teenage daughter, and the daughter asked, why is Stephen living with us? And her mom just simply said, because that's what friends do, right? And she's still one of my best friends to this day. And that really just kind of underscored that these people would not invite me to live in their homes for a month if they did not hold me in high regard.
Well, I hate to follow it up with this one, but what's the saddest thing that's ever happened to you?
I don't know if you can tell by now, I'm generally a cheerful, upbeat kind of guy. I certainly have had sadness in my life, but it was actually hard to figure out what the saddest thing was at first. But I finally put my finger on something, and I would qualify it as sad but beautiful. I'm pretty empathetic to people around me. I plug into their emotions. I feel a lot, especially if it's someone who I love. And what happened was my father's father passed away. My grandfather passed away probably about 20 years ago. And at the time, my parents were coming back from a road trip, but my older brother and I decided, we were going to be there. So we flew together to Nova Scotia, where my grandparents lived, and we showed up a day early before my parents did. So when my parents arrived, we picked them up at the airport, and my dad was quite adamant. He wanted to go to the funeral home alone, just us, before he went with his to see the rest of his family. So we took him, and we walked in, and my dad and my mom were about maybe 5 or 6 feet ahead of us, and my dad walked up and saw his father laying there, and that was the first time I saw my dad cry. And my dad is strong, and he is so full of love, and he's fiercely protective, right? God forbid someone comes after his family, guns a-blazing, he'll be there. And so to see him having a very human moment and experiencing just that anguish overcome him, because he felt the same way about his father, it was just heartbreaking to watch. And I think more devastating, more sad for me was realizing that I couldn't do anything about it. My mom had her arm around him. Like I said, my brother and I were just standing 5 or 6 feet behind him. It was intense. My brother, grabbed my hand. There we are standing like we were as kids, holding hands, watching our, father crying in front of us. And that was intense. It was a lot. And I would say that I found solace knowing that we were all together for that. And so that's why it was beautiful, because as much as it was that very, very sad moment, it was the saddest moment of my life. It was beautiful in hindsight that we were all together, and it just underscores how close my family is. We're all very much like you're experiencing me right now. And so, that's probably the saddest one, but it still sits with me like it was last month. I don't even remember my own arrival there, but I do remember the arrival of my parents to tiny coal mining town in rural Nova Scotia, and exactly what happened. But it's funny how those really, really intense emotions really stick with you, and they just kind of make that imprint on your psyche. But that was how that one went.
I still remember I was probably like in, I think, 8th grade or something like that. And I remember getting woke up by the phone ringing at like 4 in the morning. And when the phone rings at 4 in the morning, it's never good. And I remember my dad answering the phone. And my dad's dad died right after he was born. So he never had his father, but his oldest brother was like his father. Always had been, and he'll say it. They all had nicknames for each other. My dad had 9 kids in his family. And so each one of them had like a nickname and everything. And my oldest uncle they called him Todd. I don't know why, but it's like a country thing. My family is very country. If you can't tell, I picked up on all of that from them. But I still remember my dad talking on the phone, 4 in the morning. I couldn't hear what was going on. And then I heard him run out the back door and just wail, like cry, like I've never heard, And it's like you said, I'd never seen my dad cry or never heard my dad cry ever. And, and my uncle had passed away. And I think that's one of those things that sticks with you, because like, especially, it doesn't, honestly, it doesn't matter how old you get. If you're close to your parents, they just seem to always know what's going on, and they've got everything together. And to see them hurt like that, it's something that just like sticks. I can picture myself laying there in bed and know exactly every second of that. I've got a brain cell that's just devoted just to keeping that memory forever. So
Yeah, it's they stick with us, and they're among the most human experiences that we have is the loss and the grief that goes along with it and the anguish in the moment. And and I think they are powerful because, once they pass, they really give us perspective in so many other things. It can cause people to apologize after fights. It can cause people to call people and tell them, I miss you, I love you. It can cause people to straighten up their life and get on this, on a different path. But those really intense periods of emotion really make that kind of impact on us as humans. So, I think that's a great question you ask people, and I'm sure everyone has a very different answer too.
well, I mean, we're already toward the end. You've been doing really well.
This is good. This is good. Thanks for letting me ramble on.
Oh, I'm loving it.
Good.
So I might as well go ahead and ask you the last one, which is based on your life experience so far, what's the best advice you can give the people out there listening?
And I thought about this from, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, what would it be? And pretty much what it boils down to is just show who you really are, right? Don't try to hide who you are to be someone else, attract someone else. The reality is, this is, my wise master Yoda years coming back to me. Eventually they're going to find out, right? And either they're going to feel betrayed or they're going to leave, and probably both, because you misrepresented yourself. So, I guess what I would tell myself is, if you're going to scare those people away, do it quickly. Make room for the people who want to be close to you, because those are the people that are going to make you shine. They're going to see the spark in you. You're going to see the spark in them, and you're going to benefit each other. But you can't do that when those people are not in your life, and the people that you're attracting are not connected to you that way, right? It reminds me. It reminds me of you and I running into each other at random at a conference of 80,000 people. Obviously, there's that connection. If I was not willing to show who I was and my interest in Dragon Con, I wouldn't have been at that conference. I wouldn't have met you. Same with you. I'm going to totally date myself here, but there was the 1980s Anne of Green Gables series done by Canadian production. And I remember Anne of Green Gables talking to her best friend, Diana Barry, right? In like 1800s, Prince Edward Island. And she kept going on about, oh, Diana Barry, you're my best friend. We're kindred spirits, right? And that term kindred spirit always stuck with me. And I think if you are a kindred spirit with someone, you're just going to click. You're just going to keep running into each other. And part of that is, we're going to put each other in, put ourselves in situations where we will run into that person. But I still believe that there is a certain amount of happenstance that goes along with that. So, if you find the right people, they're going to celebrate your presence on Earth. You're going to celebrate theirs. They're going to remind you sometimes when you forget, just that the world is a better place because you're in it. But the conscious decision, the choice, comes from you first, being your authentic self and just showing everything about you, your interests, your sparks, your personality, your style. Just wear it on your sleeve, show it openly, and be proud of it. And you're going to find the right people to hang out with, or better, they'll find you.
That's true. Used to, I was always like the nerdy guy and everything like that. But of course, like when you're growing up, you don't want to be a nerdy guy. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. I was always like, I love going to like conventions, but I'm never going to be that guy that like dresses up or anything like that, because I don't want anybody to see me. And now I'm like the guy in spandex. You literally met the guy in spandex dressed as Nightcrawler. And, it's once I kind of was like, you know what? I don't actually care what people think. I'm just going to be me, and I'm weird. Like, you've got to know that. But like, it's really strange that I was so always kind of like ashamed of that and everything like that. But once I embraced it, I met amazing people that complimented that side of me. And then it just started to grow and grow and grow just from being true to myself first.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, speaking of the X-Men and speaking of Dragon Con, here I am now in San Francisco, and you know, there's X-Men fans here, and I basically got a jacket from a past employer with their logo on it, and I just threw an X-Men patch over top of it. And when I wear that out in the city, I get stopped left and right by just random other X-Men fans asking me, "Who's your favorite?" Great jacket, and you know, that's kind of a piece of the puzzle. It's there's so many different facets and layers of Steven, but here's one that I'm willing to share with the world, and frankly, be quite proud doing.
I also like your other saying that you mentioned earlier in the episode with the just say yes. Like, I mean, I know I say give the best advice and everything, but that one actually really connected to me because I was once in a relationship with somebody that always said no to everything. Everything was always a definitive no. Few days later, maybe a yes or something like that. And I'm kind of if somebody asks me something, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it right now. Let's do it because that's a new experience and I'm a experience collector. So I really like that advice that you gave.
It's that adventurer mindset, right? Experience collector, adventurer, call it what you want. But I think we do ourselves a disservice when the universe offers up a scenario and our first response is the no. Like, that's that fear, right? But even to go through that mental exercise of just daydreaming, like, what would that look like? Wow, that's new. What would that look like? Let's just walk that through, moving to Calcutta, volunteering with the Peace Corps, quitting my job and, working in the Arctic Circle or something. Walk it through in your head. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And if it's meant to be, and you actually do decide to pull the trigger on it, then things will fall into place really quickly. And that's how you know it's meant to be.
Oh yeah. And if it's really interesting to you, no matter what anybody else says, give it a try. Right now I am actually getting whitewater raft guide trained so that I can take people down the Ocoee River, which you probably know from the 1996 Olympics is where they had the whitewater section built and everything like that. I'm still working my normal job and everything. Everybody thinks I'm like just gonna like pack up because I go and kind of live on a hippie commune on the weekends right now down at the raft place because it's some pretty intensive training, and everybody literally thinks I'm crazy. Like, everybody I work with is just like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I had the opportunity to do it because I had a friend that bought the company, and I have an opportunity to help her out and do something that I always just thought was cool. And I might be crazy to do it, but I'm always going to say yes and then figure out whether it's good for me or not.
And I mean, Brad, you're going to have people saying you're crazy. You're going to ask yourself, am I crazy? The short answer is yes, we're all crazy, right? But it's about, living your best crazy and finding other people whose crazy is compatible with yours.
Yeah, I'd rather be crazy fun than boring.
You're doing it well.
Well, I really enjoyed this. I knew you were going to do good. I could tell you were a little bit nervous. I didn't see you looking at your notes once that you had down below you. So I think you've done a good job.
What notes? All right. Yeah, this was great. Yeah, again, I'm honored that you asked me to participate, and I think this is a great series. I've enjoyed the watching the few that I have, and yeah, so we'll see what this goes like, and I will look forward to seeing you Labor Day in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, Dragon Con. I'm glad you're gonna be there. We can never break this tradition. We always have to find each other at Dragon Con now.
More than once.
More than once.
I want to thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Also, check out the video podcast at Handlebar ASMR on YouTube for extras.